policy implementation in the Philippines. The floor is yours.
PDF. It's a PDF file. I'll just scroll it down. Hello. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Are you still awake? I just arrived around 4 a.m. this morning, and I had to sleep at the airport for an hour before coming here, just freshen up, and now I'm here. So I hope you guys are having fun as well, as we are learning so many things about language and other things. So for today, I'm going to talk about knowledge management. Ooh, okay, hold on. So I only have about 15 minutes as my goal. Anybody who have heard about the word knowledge management? Okay, cool, good to know. All right, I'll probably just start. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be part of this conference. I'm um, Joan Elgin Collin, an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines. So a few years ago, I was here as a participant, and I just finished my research proposal, and today I'm going to share to you um, the research result. And so my research is about knowledge management in a national education policy implementation in the Philippines, an inquiry into the Department of Education's MTB MLE knowledge sharing dynamics and influences. So my goal in this presentation is not only to share with you findings of my research, but also to encourage you to consider this field as a future research interest, where you can also evaluate knowledge management practices in your respective contexts. In this presentation, I would like to present the following: an introduction to knowledge management concepts, an intersection of knowledge management in other contexts, an overview of the framework that I use to look at the KM, knowledge management, KM landscape in the implementation of MTB MLE in my home country, the Philippines, and finally, there you go, a recommendation on what else could be done to develop our current KM landscape and practices. So as I start my presentation, I would like to ask you this hypothetical question. What do you think will happen if one day you wake up and go to work and find out 50% of your colleagues resigned and left your organization? Wow. What are you going to do to continue your work? How long will it take you and your organization to recover from the loss of manpower in your organization? So let that question um, um, sink and think about the effect of losing knowledge assets. So this is my presentation outline for today. Okay, so we need knowledge to operate something. Loss of important people in an organization or in a community may mean losing important knowledge assets such as institutional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, etc. That's why it's important for an organization to have a knowledge management strategy. So let me begin by introducing to you the knowledge management concepts. What is knowledge and what is knowledge management? So knowledge is a human and organizational asset enabling effective decisions and actions in context. So I'm not sure if you can see it from here. You have the data, information, and then knowledge at the top. Now, for knowledge management, okay, so most people associate the word knowledge with technical knowledge, and they classify knowledge according to subjects or colleges and university. So we also have what we call operational knowledge, your local or country knowledge. You have facts or information about your country, and also indigenous knowledge. So generally there are two forms of knowledge. We have the tacit and explicit knowledge. To summarize it, actually tacit knowledge is about experiential knowledge, while explicit knowledge is basically knowledge in written form. So now that we have defined knowledge and knowledge management, we can also talk about the different knowledge processes. And one of the things that in knowledge management, they are, what do you call this, having challenges is transferring tacit knowledge. So from tacit to tacit. So here there are many different ways we can do that. So we can do mentorship, face-to-face, we can change the layout of the office, and we can do peer assist, etc. So these are just ideas to transfer tacit knowledge. Now, for converting tacit knowledge to explicit knowledge, we can do documentation, storytelling, keeping a diary or journal, blogging, graphical representation, and mind mapping. Okay. All right. So, I started my research about knowledge management in 2012, about 10 years ago when I was doing my thesis. And in this study, I explored the preferences between the young and old members of a nonprofit organization. This organization has been working in community development through literacy, among many other things. So, what is the point of knowledge management here? So what I found out is that if an organization comes to a community as an expert, there is no sustainability. But because they are not involved, the community is not involved basically. But if an organization goes to a community as a facilitator and involve the community into planning, into collaborating, into finding solutions, how to serve their community better, then the solution that they do is more sustainable. So that itself already shows how you can manage knowledge and how it impacts the community. So these empowered community members that have been trained, they also train another community. So they become facilitators themselves. And this whole loop is a great example of knowledge management in an indigenous context. And so I decided to use the same concepts applied in a larger scale. And since I've already done groundwork in research in indigenous context, I look at MTB-MLE implementation as a great area to continue the study. So here is my research question. What is the current knowledge management landscape of MTB-MLE implementation determined by implementers and advocates in the Philippines, and how can we leverage and utilize current knowledge management practices to improve the implementation in the country? Now this is a very, ambitious research. As an individual researcher, it's a lot of work. I need a lot of time to work on this. But what I did is I interviewed key informants, survey, I did focus group discussion, and I was able to create a knowledge management framework in the context of the Philippines. So here I have concepts from knowledge management right at the left-hand side. You have the knowledge assets, formal and informal mechanisms, all of the knowledge management concepts, including processes, tools, and then I also use Susan Malone's essential components as part of my assessment. And then we did the assessment of the implementation from year 2011 to 2022. And then for the key framework, we only focus on the program, process, platform, and people. So now here is the framework. So what you can see here is this is a working knowledge management framework on MTB-MLE implementation. So you have the programs, organizational activities and events. Then you have the process where the apply, identify, create, store, share knowledge. On the left-hand side, you have platforms where you have IT-based and non-IT-based platforms to store knowledge. Then you have people. You have the Department of Education, NGOs, INGOs. There you go. And then right outside the box, you also have the lessons learned. So stakeholders, lessons learned from MTB MLE implementation, from policy making, advocacy, strategic planning, and monitoring and evaluation. Over here, you have KM initiatives from different, from local, regional, national level. Down here, you have internal and external dynamics where we can learn about knowledge sharing enablers and disablers, bridges and barriers, conflicts, motivations, and priorities. And right on the left-hand side, you have successful stories like case studies of exemplary schools from different language contexts. So this is just an overview of how we can look at the MTB-MLE implementation in the country. And in the same framework, we can use it in other contexts as well. So with the programs, platforms, people, and processes. Okay, so actually there's a lot of information that I can share about the country's current situation, but I think I will not get into that details anymore. I only have about 5 minutes. But in my research, I did assessment on the knowledge management processes, knowledge creation, where we found out that schools are knowledge generators. We have knowledge storage and transfer application and knowledge management tools. I'll just go straight to the main insights. Okay, so what we learned is that participants who are in the leadership position tends to give higher score, okay, when they assess how MTB-MLE is being implemented in the country. So if they're in the leadership position and then I interview them, the way they see it is in a very positive side compared to participants who are actually focused more on teaching. So possible reasons are maybe because these key informants have more access and information, and they are more informed and aware of the training, initiatives, and other information repositories. So if I ask them, so what do you think about the storage of all the materials that we have in the Philippines? These key informants, they know a lot of information. So that's why they are more positive, because they know about the initiatives. But those who are actually at the ground level, the teachers, they don't know a lot about the databases, all of these repositories. So that explains why. Many of the participants find the terms in the survey quite technical, but after explaining and giving some examples, so I created a survey. So knowledge management was quite, what do you call this, too much for them. But once I started explaining it to them, then they realized, oh, we do a lot of that. So they feel more comfortable. Many of the teachers involved in the workshops are also advocates of MTB-MLE, and they share that immersing yourself to workshops and training are made them understand the concept and its goals better. There are some teachers reported with mixed review about MTB-MLE implementation in their respective schools because of leadership with their fellow teachers and community. Local government units usually extend their help and support to the schools very easily compared to the parents. And finally, good leadership from their immediate supervisors and support from the division level, along with the cooperation of the teachers and collaboration of the community, is the main theme with regards to successful implementation. So here we have the bridges and barriers. So you can see that there are support, peacemaking initiatives, community meetings, workshops, exemplary MTB-MLE execution, resilient teachers, advocacy, and then the people. And now you also have the barriers, and on top of it you have the low signal and no internet access. So we're dealing with that problem. Problems in the community, tribal feud, parents' attitude, teachers' attitude, leaders' attitude, lack of personnel, lack of resources, and IT skills. So those are some of the barriers that we can see. Now, to that framework, the 4 Ps. We have the programs and projects, processes. There's a lot, right? Okay. So you can see there are already a lot of knowledge repositories like LRMDS, where they store all the materials that they created. They also have information systems and other knowledge products. This is an example of a knowledge flow. So you have the technical skills over here on the left-hand side, community knowledge. These are knowledge assets. Then you also have the official platform and unofficial platform. So this unofficial platform could be on written form or Google Drive, shared Google Drive, and these can be their knowledge repositories. And then you have the trainings and workshops and the mentorship, and this could be part of the knowledge sharing. Only 3 processes, and that is these things can be used for knowledge use. Okay, some recommendations. So MTB MLE coordinator. So many of the current coordinators are also doing multiple roles in the our Department of Education. So sometimes they do, for example, one Filipino and MTB MLE. So it's hard for these coordinators to focus on one thing. So if they have a coordinator just focusing on MTB MLE, that will be really helpful. Also IT support, technology, and more training. Okay, 4 questions for discussion. So how about you guys? What are the current existing practices related to knowledge management you think you already have in your respective institution or community? What do you think are the important knowledge or practices, could be indigenous or operational knowledge, that needs to be organized and captured in your community or country in relation to MLE? Which group of people or certain individuals in your community or country that bears important knowledge that needs to be transferred or captured, and what is the best way to do it? Finally, what we have learned so far is that knowledge is intangible, complex, and created by people. MTB MLE implementation in the Philippines show many KM practices already in place. There is no one-size-fits-all organization's policy of KM solution. KM includes interaction between people to build shared understanding, and knowledge is not managed directly. So knowledge management focuses on the working environment to nurture the creation and use of knowledge. And finally, culture is a critical aspect of the working environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John, for shedding light on the current knowledge management landscape of MTB MLE implementation in the Philippines. So,